This brain hack was removed from clinical psychology years ago, not because it was dangerous for your health, but because it made certain people too sharp, especially those who already lived inside their own mind. This was not made for extroverts. It was made for people like you, silent, focused, overlooked. And once you understand what this does to an introvert's brain, you'll never think the same again. Introverts are often misunderstood because the world moves too fast to notice what happens in silence. They're labeled as shy, awkward, or disconnected simply because they don't speak unless there's something worth saying. But what people call quiet is actually observation. What they see as slow is actually precision. Introverts don't waste energy performing for the world. They conserve it, analyze it, and use it with intention, while others respond instantly. Introverts pause, reflect, and respond with clarity. This is not weakness, it's control. In school, in social circles, and even at work, they're overlooked not because they lack talent, but because they don't chase attention. But attention was never the goal. Understanding was. Impact was. And the truth is, introverts often see more than they say. They're wired to notice what others miss. That's not a flaw. That's a strategic advantage. And when given the right tool, introverts don't just match others, they outperform them in ways no one expects. Quiet isn't a weakness, it's hidden power. There's a mental technique known as the cognitive isolation protocol, rarely spoken about, quietly buried, and never taught openly. It's not a product, not an app, and not a routine anyone can sell. It's a method of silent, internal training designed to strengthen the one thing the modern world constantly weakens: your focused mind. It works by forcing you to mentally loop a single idea, question, or challenge in your head for 30 to 45 minutes. No writing, no distractions, no talking, just raw mental repetition inside absolute silence. This process may sound simple, but it's brutally effective. As you hold and rotate the same thought over and over, your brain starts compressing it, breaking it down, flipping it, reconnecting it with older memories, and forming entirely new patterns. Over time, this internal loop builds focus stamina, the ability to stay on one mental task without drifting. It boosts memory by forcing your brain to hold complex ideas longer. It also activates lateral thinking, where you start connecting unrelated concepts to solve problems more creatively. Unlike external learning where ideas are fed to you, this method trains your mind to extract insight from silence. It forces your brain to build strength the way muscles grow under tension. The longer you hold the thought loop without escape, the sharper your mental processing becomes. And for introverts, who already live comfortably in internal reflection, this protocol isn't just useful, it's a weapon. It builds a kind of invisible intelligence that does not just sound smart, it feels inevitable. The cognitive isolation protocol was once tested quietly in clinical environments, mostly with subjects who showed introverted traits: high focus, low social need, deep internal thinking. The results were powerful but disturbing. Subjects began showing extreme levels of discipline, intense pattern recognition, and emotional coldness. Their memory retention improved, decision-making became faster, and they stopped reacting emotionally in normal conversations. It did not harm them, but it changed them so much they became difficult to relate to. They detached from social norms, lost interest in shallow interactions, and operated with a kind of mental precision that felt unnatural to others. Therapists labeled the technique as too advanced for group application. Some said it created an intelligence gap between the user and their environment. Instead of being used to heal, it started turning people into quiet mental machines. That's when it was pulled. No public studies, no follow-ups, silently shelved. Not because it failed, because it worked too well. When you use the cognitive isolation protocol regularly, your brain starts to rewire itself in powerful ways, without you even realizing it. Unlike typical learning where you take in information from the outside, this method strengthens your mind from the inside out. Holding single thought or question in your head for 30 to 45 minutes with no external input puts your brain under focused pressure. It begins forming what experts call compression loops, a way of processing thoughts more efficiently storing more meaning in less mental space. You start to think faster, not because you're rushing, but because your brain learns how to filter out useless information. Your logic becomes sharper. Thoughts that used to feel cloudy or emotional begin to look more structured. You stop overreacting to things that don't matter. Emotional noise fades because your brain gets used to working in silence. It builds a tolerance to chaos and distraction. This is especially powerful for introverts because they already spend more time in internal processing. The protocol simply enhances what's already there, making their thinking cleaner, deeper, and faster. Over time, this rewiring gives you the ability to hold complex thought patterns longer. You can think through multiple layers of a problem without losing focus or getting overwhelmed. You'll also start noticing something strange. You can read people faster. Their body language, tone, and patterns become easier to detect because your mind isn't cluttered. Your awareness expands, not outward, but inward. It feels like you're always 3 steps ahead. Not loud, not showy, just calculated, calm, and far more intelligent than before. Introverts are naturally wired to process information in silence. They don't need noise, crowds, or constant feedback to think clearly. In fact, those things often get in the way. That's exactly why the cognitive isolation protocol works so well for them. It does not fight their nature, it enhances it. While extroverts often rely on talking things out to understand them, introverts do the opposite. They reflect. They loop ideas in their head, break them down, and rebuild them before ever speaking. This protocol takes that quiet strength and sharpens it into something far more powerful. By spending intentional time looping a single thought with no distractions, introverts can unlock deeper insight, stronger memory, and greater mental clarity. They already tolerate silence better than most. Where others feel uncomfortable, introverts feel focused. That calm, focused space becomes the perfect environment for this brain hack to work at full power. It's not just an upgrade, it's a mental awakening tailored to how they already operate best. The cognitive isolation protocol is not a casual practice. It's mental weaponry. And like any weapon, it needs control. Used carelessly, it can take a sharp mind and make it unstable. That's why there are rules, not to limit you, but to protect your focus, your energy, and your emotional balance. Rule 1 is simple. Never use it when you're emotionally unstable. If you're angry, anxious, or mentally overwhelmed, this technique will amplify those states. It does not calm the mind. It concentrates whatever's already inside it. If you're not in a steady frame of mind, the isolation will magnify your chaos, not your clarity. Rule 2, don't exceed 45 minutes. It might feel tempting to go longer when you're in the zone, but your mind is not built for endless pressure. Think of this like weight training for your brain. Overload leads to burnout. Pushing past that window can result in fatigue, mental fog, or emotional detachment. Rule 3 is the grounding phase. Once the session ends, do something physical or reflective. Go for a walk, stretch, or write in a journal. This brings your mind back to balance. It's important to remind your brain that it's still human, still connected to the physical world. Without grounding, you risk drifting too far into cold logic and isolation. Used with discipline, this protocol does not just sharpen thinking. It builds dangerous mental clarity with full control. Consistent use of the cognitive isolation protocol comes with a cost. As your mind sharpens, your connection to surface-level emotions may fade. You begin to withdraw from casual conversations, finding them meaningless. Overthinking becomes a default setting. Your brain analyzes everything, even when it does not need to. Emotional expression may feel harder to access, not because you don't care, but because logic starts to lead. This is not for comfort seekers. It's for those willing to trade warmth for clarity, distraction for control, and normalcy for something far more precise. Intelligence has a price, and this method makes sure you pay it. After a few weeks of consistent use, the cognitive isolation protocol begins to change your presence in a way that's hard to explain, but impossible to ignore. You'll start noticing that conversations feel easier, not because you've become louder, but because your brain starts processing faster than people talk. You begin predicting what they'll say, spotting patterns in their logic, and responding with clarity that cuts through confusion. Your confidence doesn't come from hype or external praise. It comes from knowing you can rely on your own mind under pressure. Fear fades. Not because you're fearless, but because you've trained your brain to stay focused when others panic. That calm becomes your edge. You walk into rooms without needing to prove anything, and people feel that. You speak only when needed, and your words land harder. You listen more, because your mind is already working through the outcomes. You don't chase approval. Your clarity becomes its own power. Over time, this quiet control creates momentum. You stop second-guessing yourself. You stop chasing trends. Your actions become deliberate, and your focus becomes constant. People may not know what you did to change, but they'll know you're not the same. You've upgraded silently, and it shows everywhere. If this video spoke to something in you that most people ignore, it's because you're not built for noise. You're built for clarity. You think in silence, move with precision, and grow without needing to be seen. That's rare, and that's exactly who this channel is for. So, if you felt this, subscribe now, not because it's popular, but because it's personal. In the comments, write, "Silent thinking activated." That's how I'll know you're not just consuming content, you're training differently, quietly, with purpose. The world doesn't reward noise, it respects outcomes. And the ones who operate in silence, they're the ones who always win in the end.